Hello, this is Kim from Kimberly Scott Science, and today we are talking about science fairs, one of my most favorite topics to talk about. I know a lot of people dread the science fair, but it can be a wonderful family experience and it can just be really memorable. So if you offer the right tools to your families, they can have a great time. So we're going to talk about the expectations for a kindergarten and first grade project, because a kindergarten first grade project is very different from a fifth grade project, and you need to keep that in mind. So when I go into the rooms and I talk about the fair, and the kindergarten and first graders get so excited, and I know they go home that night and say, Mom and Dad, I want to do a project, and the parents go, ooh, I'm just not sure, is because they're thinking that it's got to be bigger than what it is. So we're going to go over those expectations. We always do a science fair workshop, and that really reassures the families. When they come that night and we conduct an experiment, I can see the relief on the parents' face that they're like, we can do this. We've got this. So I wanted to share those with you today in helping you if your child really wants to do a project, and also for the teachers too, so that you understand what the expectations are, because our first grade teachers, they were a little unsure when we said, hey, we're going to move the fair down and make it kindergarten through fifth grade and not just third through fifth grade. And they were unsure. And then after that first year, they were like, oh yeah, this is great, because they knew our expectations were realistic. So the first thing is, it's going to be done as a partnership. It's going to be the parent and the child, or whatever adult helper. I have a lot of times grandparents that'll do it with them. They're going to be partners. A kindergarten and first grader can't do a project by themselves. It's just not realistic. So they are partners. So that is our first tip, to remember that it is done with you as a team. The second tip is that you are there to guide them, but that the student has to be able to take ownership of their project. It really needs to be their idea and something they're interested in. So here is my son's kindergarten project, and he did the classic Mentos and Diet Coke geysers. I mean, how fun is that, right? I have a lot of kids that like to do baking projects because they enjoy to bake and it's relevant to them. So it's something that they can relate to because they have baked before. So think about something that is driven by them. They're going to be more interested in it, and then you're going to have a lot more fun. The third thing is, you're guiding them, but they need to take ownership of the project. So they might have chosen their topic, but if you're always kind of doing it for them, they're not really going to take ownership of it. And the night of the fair, if they stand there and talk to the judges, they're not going to be able to express themselves well to really explain the project. And trust me, they can explain it, and they love talking to the judges. So even though a kindergarten first grader may not know every word on here or be able to read everything, they need to be able to look at the pictures, remember what they did, know that they helped in the process of writing this stuff down, so that they can clearly explain it and know, this is my project and I am proud of it. The fourth thing is to develop a schedule. Remember, they have a very short attention span. So if one night all you do is pick what your project is going to be, that's all you do that night. Maybe the next night you then do your research. Then the next night you go shopping for what you need. Sit down and look at the time frame. I always give at least 6 weeks notice for the fair. They usually know what time of year it is, but I start going around 6 weeks before is when I go in and I tour the rooms, because I want to make sure that they have enough time in their time frame to do it. So I'll give them 6 weeks notice. The next week they have like 5 weeks from the workshop to be able to do their project. So it gives them time to spread it out. If you know they're at their attention span, stop working on it for the night. And don't wait 2 nights before the fair to do the project. Do not do that. Make sure you're spreading it out and you're ready. And if it's a realistic project, that shouldn't matter. The fifth thing is to keep safety in mind. So I love elephant toothpaste, but I would probably not do it with kindergarten and first grade. I've done it with second grade because I know safety-wise. Mentos Diet Coke geysers, I know we can do that very safely. Make sure you have the safety goggles. Make sure you follow the rules for your fair. You can do eruptions and fun things like that with this age level, but don't make it bigger than it needs to be, and keep it to that kitchen science stuff. So the food science, the vinegar and the baking soda and the lemon juice and things like that. And baking is a great chemistry one. So remember, age appropriate with your safety. The next thing is, you want to let them be the problem solvers. So with this, I have a workbook series that takes them through and helps them to develop their project and what they want to do, and if they encounter problems. And sometimes if they're just like, no, this is how I want it, I say, okay. So if we know a tool isn't working well, we said, well, what could we use Let them decide, because they're going to learn just as much from their failures as they do from their successes, and it's okay. They're learning from that process. They like to be creative and try different things, and they will surprise you with the problem-solving skills that they will have. I mean, we had some problem solving, and we ended up deciding to use a tree to help us figure out the measurement of it. So keep that in mind. The next thing is to keep it simple. So this is where I'm going to really kind of explain this board. You really want, so for this one he did, what is the effect of the flavor of Mento on the height of a Diet Coke geyser? You want to keep it to with and without experiments, or this and that experiments, hot and cold. In this case, he did flavors, and we only did 3 flavors. A lot of times I only do 2 things. If I'm in the classroom with the kids, we do a with and without. It makes it really clear for them to see it, and they're going to be able to explain it better. Remember that thing we talked about, ownership of their project. In this case, we did 3 flavors, nice and simple. Again, to keep it simple, do 1 trial. Don't go ahead and do 2 trials. If it's an experiment where the results come quickly and you feel like you can do it, and you feel like your child is at that level, but in reality, we erupted 1 geyser with a Mento, 1 geyser with a strawberry Mento, and 1 geyser with lemon orange. That's it. We erupted it and we ranked it. Nice and simple, very nice simple graph. They're going to be able to explain it the night of the fair, and it's going to be a positive experience for them. If you're doing something like plants, you don't need 10 to 20 plants growing in your house. 1 of each is fine. And even if the experiment doesn't quite work out like you thought, the child can still explain what happened. That is fine. So keep it very simple. This is a good example of that. Then you have your observations, and it's very simple because they only had the 1 trial of each to observe. So they're able to do that very easily. You also see with keeping it simple, for this one, we decided to, after we used our rough draft of the journal, we printed out a whole new journal and we made that our final draft. So we only had to handwrite some things in. Handwriting is fine. And at this age level, the parent can write it in and write down what the child is telling them. When they reach a point where they want to type, they can type, but it's a science fair project. It's not a project on whether or not your child can type at a computer. So think about that. It is okay to have things handwritten in and to do that and to make it so they can glue it. I have one where you can obviously tell it was the child gluing it on. There's nothing wrong with that. This one was a kindergarten project, so it was a little more together of us cutting and gluing. First grade, it's a little more on their own. So make sure you keep that simple and take lots of photographs, not of themselves, of the experiment. Because at this age level, they're going to need some pictures up there to help guide them to explain it, because they may not be able to read all the words. And that's going to help them focus on the experiment, having pictures that they take of what is happening. And it's also going to help them when they go through to describe maybe what flavors that he did. He has a picture of it there in case he has trouble reading all the words or remembering everything. The pictures are going to guide them. Here's another example of a project that I have, and this is I gotta grab it here. This is a first grade project. It's a little old and falling apart just a little bit, but again, it's still really age appropriate. And you'll see here, we just printed out paper with lines, and at this point, he was able to write it himself, space out the time frame. One night, he maybe does this side of the board. The next night, he does the middle of the board. And then the next night, he does his conclusion and summary of the board. And look at it, it's just simple sentences, age appropriate for them. The background information is just a little bit of information. He did Skittles. So when you place Skittles in water, the Skittles will start to dissolve, but not the S, and the S floats to the top. 2 changes to make it simple. So he does the amount of salt affect the time the S comes up? He did 2 things, with and without salt. And he timed how long it took for the S to float to the top. So you'll see for that, he ended up doing 2 trials. Why did he do 2 trials? Because he could put 2 Skittles in at one time, and he was able to do that. And as he was working, he realized he wanted to do it again, so he did a second trial. So you could plan on 1 trial, but if your child's really excited and is like, I want to do it again, then go ahead, do a second trial. Don't go and do like 5 or 10 trials if that's just not feasible with your supplies. And then he was able to do his graph. For this one, he needed some time with a stopwatch, so we worked on learning to tell time. Nice pictures so he could show as he was explaining. and then he has his observations, and then he hand wrote everything in. And as they evolve up, in my other videos, you'll see my students ended up starting to type their projects as it went on. That was something that they chose to do. So remember, keep it very simple, age appropriate. The 2 changes, with and without, hot and cold, nice and simple for their age level. Let them take the time to glue. Don't always look for perfection, and just have a lot of fun with the projects. And if you want to learn more, please visit me at KimberlyScottScience.com, and you will be able to link to my blog where I have all the resources, and you'll also be able to go to my Teachers Pay Teachers store where I have my science fair workbook series, which will guide step by step, and it is perfect for making a classroom project. So the teachers that are watching this, if you want to do a whole class project, it will take you step by step, and it will help you also meet the NGSS science and engineering practices. So it can be a whole lesson plan that will meet your standards and won't take up from your science time, because you'll have a lot of fun with it. So, and feel free to message me at any time if you have any questions, and you can also check me out on Facebook, and that is a great way to get in touch with me if you need help with your child's science fair project. And remember, have fun with it.